We can go with the hottest character and or cast, however you want to interpret.
Okay, hottest character. There's so many to choose from. I don't even know where to start. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're true cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We'll have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
Veronica, we're here. It's our first episode.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the beginning of something very, very exciting. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling, both of us are both getting over cold, so we're feeling that. But mostly I'm feeling excited about movies that happened in 2025. I think it was a great year. And I'm excited to do this with you, to sort of put our voices out there in the broader film community. I've always, loved this sort of thing, and I'm really happy to have this outlet to talk about all the biggest news in movies. What about you?
I'm very excited. Echoed the same sentiment. Very excited to get this off the ground with you and everything. And we'll definitely touch upon how we met and how we came across one another when we introduced ourselves a little bit more. But yeah, like you said, getting over the cold, getting over the holiday season and everything, the holiday craze. Very excited that the holidays are now over. Crazy that we're in a new year. We're literally recording this on January 3rd, and it's hard to believe that it's already 2026. It feels like it was just yesterday when it was the first day of 2025, and now we're a whole year ahead, and it's pretty wild. But it's a new year, a new beginning, and this podcast is something that we both are very excited to share with the world, and we're excited to share with all of you who are listening. We hope that this podcast expands your horizons as cinephiles. We wanted to make a podcast that's really catered towards the ultimate cinephile, and like Veronica was saying, we're going to go through so much. We're going to do movie reviews, drafts, festival talk, Oscar predictions. We're going to go through it all, and we're very excited to have you along on this journey. So, Veronica, would you like to kind of elaborate to our listeners how we came across one another and everything? Because this is going to be a very fun story to share for sure.
Yeah, sure. I think we just connected through like social media. I had seen your other podcast, Life Moves Pretty Fast. Shout that out. And I think we had connected on Instagram or something maybe. And you, I think, sent me a message like, "Oh, so cool to find another film fan from New Jersey. Like, it's not that big of a community of us here, things like that." And I was like, "Yeah, I think actually we're from the same hometown." I recognized your name, and yeah, we figured out we had gone to the same high school, slightly different years and stuff like that. But yeah, it was so funny to want to reach out to another New Jersey film fan, and we were like specifically from the same area of New Jersey, and we're a little more spread out now, so we kind of have like North and South Jersey covered in terms of going to screenings or events in the area, things like that. So yeah, it was a quick connection. We sort of had a lot of the same tastes and mindset about seeing movies, current movie landscape, things like that. And yeah, it was pretty seamless, and just needed to connect and get the logistics going and things like that, and then here we are.
Here we are indeed. Yeah, it's pretty wild when you said, I think we're from the same hometown. And then I was like, are we from the same hometown? Because your name sounded very familiar. Then I did further research, and I'm like, oh yeah, we are from the same hometown. What are the odds? Like, yeah. Truly small worlds. Because to be completely honest, I didn't think that I would ever come across another cinephile that was from the town that we grew up in and everything. I did not anticipate that at all, but I think it's pretty great, personally. I think it's pretty wonderful that. Listen, this is no disrespect to podcasts where co-hosts are scattered throughout the country or even the world, but the fact that my co-host is someone who is not only from the same state, but we grew up in the same hometown, I think that's very inspiring, because now hopefully this will be a sign for more cinephiles to emerge from that town. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have to see, but yeah, it's very exciting to be doing this with you, and I've been in this game for a very long time, admittedly. I've been doing podcasts since I was 17 years old, and I've had a multitude of different podcasts. Veronica shouted out one of my podcasts, Life Moves Pretty Fast, which is all about coming of age cinema. And I'm very excited to be doing this in particular because we're going to be talking about all different kinds of cinema. We're not talking about just one specific thing like I do with that podcast. We're going to be going through all different kinds of things going on in the world of film currently, in the past, present, and then we're going to look forward into the future. And it's really, really exciting. So, Veronica, would you like to kind of tell the audience a little bit about your history with film and what got you into it? And, you know, we kind of elaborate the story of how this podcast started and everything, but what's your history with film?
Yeah, so this is my first podcast, brand new, my debut. So that's very exciting. But I've always loved movies. It's always been a huge part of my life. I think probably the first instance is me being obsessed with The Wizard of Oz as like a little girl and wearing ruby slippers around, asking people to call me Dorothy, you know, that sort of thing. So I feel like it started around there, and always loved to just like talk about movies, dissect them. I've been called a walking IMDb page because, you know, so many times it's like, oh, you know, who's that one actor from that one thing? And I'm like, John Carroll Lynch or whoever. Like, you know, it's that sort of thing. I've just always like had a real like mind for it and stuff like that. I got into theater and performing at a young age. I'm a somewhat retired theater kid now. So, you know, I'm sort of most interested in like, find myself being most drawn to, you know, the acting and the writing in something. I think a lot of people would throw out like about a movie like, oh, it felt like it could have been a play as like a derogatory thing. But usually that's something that I like really hone in on. And that's something that, you know, is always gets my interest and everything like that. I think like during college, just to date myself, I'm gonna be turning 30 in next week. So, you know, just to get that out there in terms of my, you know, age difference and stuff, my bracket. So I think when I was in college was the Movie Pass days, that, you know, that short-lived thing. And during that time, I got really into just like, let me just go see whatever I could. And for people who don't remember, that was like, it cost like $10 a month, like less than one movie ticket to go see like unlimited movies that month. So I definitely got my money's worth on that. I got into, yeah, just seeing like anything I could, not just like things I was interested, just like wanting to get a sense of like what was out there, following like awards more closely and things like that. Then I think during COVID, I just got even more into like film podcasts, reading critics, just kind of like engaging with the larger film community, and seeing that it was, you know, something that people did for a job, was like this sort of, you know, discussion, critiquing things like that of film, and how it was, you know, a really rigorous sort of thing that was out there. I think especially during COVID when people were stuck at home and it's like you have time on your hands. It's something that was like I already loved, but it was giving me even further comfort and things like that. And so I've always wanted an outlet like this, because going to the movies is just my favorite thing to do. Films are the best way to learn about the world, learn about ourselves. It's something that's really important to me, and I think that this is going to be an amazing way to, you know, process some of those thoughts, to start conversations with you and with other people. And yeah, I'm just so excited about the prospect of having this podcast and the upcoming year of movies, things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, similar to you, I was a walk-in IMDb page when I was younger as well. There would be so many instances where people would just ask me, oh, what's that actor in? Or who directed this? Or what year did this come out? And I would be like this big encyclopedia of it. And it was a skill that I was very proud of when I was younger, and it's something that I'm still proud of to this day as
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to say ages, I guess. I'll be 28 this year, so not hitting the 30 mark yet, but not far off, though. I feel like you're probably going to have to rewatch, like, Tick, Tick, Boom or something, because that's, like, the perfect movie to watch when you're about to turn 30 and
I
everything.
literally have a letterbox list called 30th birthday incoming with that and worst person in the world and
Oh,
13 going on
yes.
30, of course.
Oh my
So yeah.
God. The perfect movies that capture what it's like to be a 30-year-old. Obviously, I can't relate because I'm not a 30-year-old, but I'm sure those movies are going to hit differently when I reach 30. But
It'll come for you eventually.
I would like for it to not come for me, but unfortunately, it's out of my control. So, yeah, I mean, I've loved film forever, and I went to film school. I studied filmmaking. I have a degree in it. I don't have a full-time career in film, unfortunately, but you know what? We do what we have to do sometimes. That's why I go and do these podcasts and YouTube videos and everything to keep my love of film alive, where it's not just bottled up in a little thing to myself. I want to get it out to the world. And I remember when we first started talking and I came across your letterbox and I was kind of scooping like your taste in film, and I was like, yeah, she definitely knows what she's talking about for sure. And when we had our first in-person meeting, when we were figuring out all the logistics with this podcast and everything, I mean, we spent most of that conversation just like talking about movies and TV and a whole bunch of entertainment. And then, of course, we spent 2 hours trying to come up with this title. But I'm glad that we finally got to that part and everything. But yeah, film is just the best. And it's a great way of finding yourself and exploring different parts of yourself. And that's not just the case with film. That's with any activity, any medium, but particularly with any form of art. Like, you could really find elements of yourself in film or television or music, video games, books, actual art, and I think that that's very inspiring. So hearing you talk about how you've had this love of film for so long, ever since you were a kid, I think is really, really incredible. And that's kind of the person that I was looking to co-host a podcast with. And for years, I have been wanting to co-host a podcast with somebody. I've had many podcasts where it's just been me and I would have someone on and we would have a discussion and everything, like if they were a co-host, but now you're an actual co-host to me, and I'm very, very excited to see where this journey goes. And yeah, I mean, to kind of jump into what we're talking about today, so we decided that our first episode of the pod, we're going to be taking a look back at the year of 2025 in terms of movies, not in terms of the year as a whole, but just the world of cinema, because that's what our podcast is primarily focused on. We're going to talk about our top 5 favorite films of the year. We're going to each give our 5 favorites, and then we're going to go through some fun categories where we kind of rapid fire answer questions, being like, what's this one for you, or what's that one for you? And I don't know Veronica's list. Veronica apparently doesn't know mine either, even though when we're recording this, my list is out there in the public. I did a YouTube video for my channel where I did my top 10 films, and hopefully Veronica isn't bringing back that theater kid skill and pretending like she doesn't know my list and everything, but we'll have to see if she's telling the truth. It's called acting. But very excited to hear your list. I'm very excited to share my list with you. And yeah, so 2025, what an interesting year for not only movies, like the movies that came out, but just the film industry in general. I mean, so much happened in 2025. I don't even know where to start.
So much happened in like December of 2025.
I know.
But the year
we
as a whole, too.
We thought the year would wind down very nicely, and no, there was like something that was going on every single day in the film industry.
Yeah, it was huge. I think it's been a huge year for talking about movie theaters in particular, with like the success of something like Sinners coming out early in the year, and there was a whole, frenzy around like the different formats to see it in, like Ryan Coogler putting out that really cool video about it. Two other things, there were summer blockbusters were pretty much back with different, superhero films out. One Battle After Another was also another big, everyone wanted to see that in the biggest screen possible. So like movie theaters were thriving pretty much. And then of course we had the late in the year news that Warner Brothers was going to be getting acquired, most likely by Netflix. And what does that mean for the future of movie theaters, for that studio in particular, and all of their history and IP and everything like that. So yeah, it's been like high highs and low lows kind of. It's been a lot of ups and downs. So I think we're just kind of waiting to see how all of this plays out. We're gonna enjoy all of the good art that was at least able to get made now. It might be a little dicey about how that looks in the future. But overall, I think that it was, talking just about the films, there were a lot of amazing things that managed to get made. And, if you ask any filmmaker, it's like the battle is just getting it out there, getting the budget that you need, getting the resources and everything, and just being able to like share your work with people. So, yeah, ups and downs, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, lots of ups, lots of downs, certainly. The thing that Veronica just brought up about how Warner Brothers might be acquired by Netflix that's like the biggest stab to the chest thing that happened this year in terms of cinema. Especially considering that Warner Brothers had a fairly successful year with a lot of the financial stuff and the critical stuff. I mean, when you really think about it, the two most celebrated films of 2025 were both released by Warner Brothers. And then on top of that, too, Warner Bros. Also had their fair share of successful films commercially. Weapons was a critical success. It also did very well financially. Superman, like these films, but not to that extent, was also a success critically, but was a huge success commercially. And now we're living in a world where these films that are clearly meant to be seen on the biggest, loudest screen, they may not have a lasting impact on the theater, because it was also mentioned just very recently that Netflix is looking to decrease Warner Brothers' theatrical window to 17 days,
17
which
days,
is
yeah.
really
Which is nothing.
that's terrible. That's not even 3 weeks. That's only a little over 2 weeks. It's very scary, and we don't have to talk about all that right now because we're here celebrating the year of film as opposed to denouncing the year of film. But it's very crucial that this is brought up, because this is going to be a huge change for how movies are handled in the years going forward, especially movie theaters, because pre-pandemic, movie theaters were thriving. Everyone was going to the theater. Sure, they were slightly dwindling a little bit throughout the years, but then the pandemic really put a huge dent in them. And since the pandemic, reached its ended point, movie theaters have been struggling. Some have been thriving, but others have been falling. There's been a lot of theater closings. I think I was reading an article to where in 2025 alone, I think maybe like 1,500 theaters closed
Wow.
or something like that, which is
Yeah.
absolutely insane. That's insane. And, that may not seem like a lot because there's 50 states in the country, but 1,500 like businesses lost their jobs and everything. Like, people lost their jobs, and it's really sad, especially me and Veronica. We're both avid supporter of the theatrical experience. And I love going to the theater, and I love watching movies at home as well. I enjoy watching movies at home from time to time, but there's something very special about sitting in the theater, in that seat. The lights are dim, you're looking at this gigantic screen, and you're watching a filmmaker tell the story that they wanted to tell. And to me, that's very inspiring. And now we're in an age where streaming has really taken over things, and there's been a lot of great content that has come out on streaming. But it's also unfortunate that streaming has been putting a huge dent in the filmmaking experience.
Right. And it affects the culture too. I don't necessarily want to go back to like the monoculture we used to have where like everyone just had the same three channels and you watched the same one movie that came out every weekend. Like, not necessarily to wind the clock back to that, but the best moments are, I'm thinking like Barbenheimer a few years ago when like that was like everybody's, conversation. Like, movies were at the center of culture, and like that's a really exciting thing for someone who's a film fan, is just when anyone you can talk to like, has seen these movies and has an opinion about them, and people want to dress up and go to the movies, and that sort of thing just makes it feel like it's, a very alive, crucial thing that's going on in our culture. And so I think that that's important. And yeah, it's just in terms of like, yeah, we're not completely anti-streaming. Like, it has its place in the landscape. It's here to stay. And, and it certainly has its conveniences and things like that. But you just worry if that's the only thing we have, when that's all that's there, and then it's going to impact the art necessarily. Like, people are going to want movies and TV shows that are designed for just like background folding laundry. Like, there's, I think we've already seen this sort of creep in a little bit where people will, say that some shows or whatever are leaning towards like Netflix slop or something like that, where a character is going to like announce their intentions and their character background or whatever, because it's just, people aren't going to focus on it. They're going to be on their phones. They're going to be doing something else. And to me, that's just like, that's degrading this really cool art form that we've had for so long. Like, you want creators to make the art that they want to make and not have to have these considerations of like, I better make this so that someone can understand what's going on if they're not fully paying attention. So yeah, that's sort of the concerns that we're dealing with. But like you said, we still got a lot of great things this year. And I think, at least for the time being, we still have some of some really great creators at work and things like that. So, it's not all bad.
I agree. There's a lot of great things that come to streaming, but we're both huge proponents of the theatrical experience, and we're going to keep being proponents of the theatrical experience until it eventually does fizzle out, which hopefully will never happen. And if it does happen, it better not happen when you and I are alive. It
You can
better happen
pry
long after we're dead.
you can pry my AMC A list from my cold dead hands and
Yes,
step over Nicole Kidman's dead body to get it from me.
100%, 100%. I echo the same sentiment. So 2025 though, like aside from that, how did you feel overall about it as a year with movies in general? Do you think that it was a strong year throughout? Do you think it took a while for it to find its footing? How did you feel overall about the year of 2025 when it came to movies?
Yeah. I feel pretty good about it. I think that, especially for someone who tries to watch a lot of movies, I feel hard pressed to call any year like a bad movie year because there's always going to be something out there if you're, looking hard enough. But I think something that's signature of 2025 is that you didn't have to even look very hard. I think a lot of the movies that were pretty big were also of pretty high quality. So, I don't know if we want to mention any titles specifically because we're going to get into our lists and things like that. But like I said, I think people were talking about going to the movies this year. There was conversation happening, both of the critical darlings and the big box office successes. So yeah, I think that this was a pretty solid year. You had a lot of very popular directors, sort of auteurs who are giving us an entry in their filmography, things like that. So yeah, I think like critically and sort of populism wise, like there was a steady mix in sort of the big movies of the year, which I think is really healthy for the movie industry and just like an enjoyable year to watch and talk about movies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love whenever there's a year in film where there's a nice balance of quality, both in the films that are catered towards cinephiles, but then also for the mainstream who may not watch all the kinds of movies that you and I may watch. And, I saw probably about 120 movies in 2025, and I didn't really dislike a ton of them. There were some that I really genuinely was not a fan of, but there weren't too many where I was like, wow, that was genuinely like the worst thing I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life, which is very refreshing. But like you were saying, it was such a wonderful year to where we got some really good blockbusters, some good popcorn entertainment, but then we also got entries into acclaimed and celebrated filmmakers' stacked filmographies. And then we also got to see some exciting new voices emerge this year as well in the
Definitely, yeah.
blockbuster world, in the independent world, in the international world too. There was a lot. This was a very good year for international cinema. I want to point that out as well. And yeah, putting together a top 10 list, or well, in this case, we're doing our top five, but putting together a list of like our favorites, this was very difficult for me. It changed around a lot.
Me too.
I I it was just a really good year. It took a while. The first few months were a little bumpy. I think a lot of people could say that there was really one film in the first half of the year that just like fired on all cylinders, and then
Yeah.
once we got to the second half of the year, it was just good movie one after the other coming out like week after week,
Yep.
and we were consistently finding something really exciting to see. So yeah, this list was tough. How was putting your list together?
Yeah, it was definitely like the tippy top I think was pretty set. But I must have had about 20 films that I rated like 4.5 stars, like super high up there. And they're all a lot of them are in conversation with each other, but a lot of them are very different stylistically or tonally or things like that. So yeah, there was a lot of just like juggling them around, like, oh, can I even say this is better than that when they're so different. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like when you a film hits a certain quality, it's like it's that good, you love it, you respect it, yeah, you can talk about it, stuff like that. Then it's just sort of a matter of personal preference, like what did I enjoy the most and things like that. So it's always hard to quantify and rank and stuff, but that's part of the fun too. It's like this is my personal pick. This is something that's yeah, means a little more to me for whatever reason. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of switching around, but it's fun to do that kind of reflection and think about what really stuck with me after that initial viewing. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same exact way. I feel completely the exact same way as you do. There was a lot of swapping around. There was a lot of films that I loved throughout the year. Similar to you, a lot of 4.5s and above. Number one, agreed, is not to spoil anything, but I feel like even when you said like, oh, the tippy top was locked in, I think that's an indicator of what the film is.
A
We're
lot
gonna
of
be
top of the list look the same this year for
we're
a lot
not
of
going to
people.
be, unfortunately, we're not going to be any different from every other person in this online film space or any other cinephile out there where we have a different film in our top spot and everything. It's like, which one is it though? Well, you have to tune in to find out and
Right.
everything. So, um, I just think we should get into it. I think we should
Yeah.
just get right into it. So, what is your number five pick, Veronica?
So my number five is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. For some background, like myself, like I'm a huge Guillermo fan. It's a very important director for me, especially he's my dad's sort of favorite director, and he sort of got me into a lot of horror movies, gothic horror, the sort of thing that Guillermo does a lot, and then is just so good at. And so just for like my experience seeing it and how that influenced me, it was opening only in limited theaters because again Netflix, but they gave it somewhat of a run in movie theaters. So my dad and I already had tickets to see the film on a Sunday in New York. And then we also found that Guillermo was doing a Q&A at a Barnes& and Noble that same day. Like the timing worked out perfectly. So it was amazing. We got to see the movie in a theater on the big screen, surrounded by other people who were probably also big fans and really enjoyed it. Loved the movie and then got to see Guillermo talk about it afterwards, doing a promo for the book that goes along with the film. So I really saw it in ideal circumstances. It's something that, I was probably already inclined to like, but just I got so swept away by it. And, there have been like sort of mixed to positive reviews of it. I think that if you're not already a Guillermo del Toro fan, this won't necessarily bring you in. But if you are already, then this is like everything you could ask for. It's like the peak Guillermo film where it's, he's talked about this being what he wanted to make for so long. And I think that he just executed it perfectly to like his own taste and things like that. And then I think like some people are like almost taking it for granted because it like clicks so perfectly into Guillermo's canon that it sort of feels like it's just always been there. It feels like something that, of course, Guillermo del Toro adapts Frankenstein. Like it works so well. And so, just talking about the movie itself, I love the production design. I love the costumes. It's period, but it's also fantasy. So there's a lot of detail with the characters' color schemes. Guillermo's always happy to talk about that, all of that goes into it. I really like the structure of the plot, and I know for some people the pacing was a little tough, or that it was too long, but, I love how it breaks it up into, I love Victor's section, I think is really propulsive. It sort of, that section of the film almost reminded me the most of Oppenheimer, the way that it's sort of like, gathering the team together to figure out if we can make this scientific discovery and never like stopping to consider whether this is something we should do or not, just sort of the ego and everything that gets wrapped up in that. Oscar Isaac is like my favorite working actor currently. I was so excited for him to team up with Guillermo, and I think that he just like has chemistry with everyone that he is on screen with, and gives that cool performance as like, I think Guillermo's talked about Victor is almost like a rock star, like someone who's got something to prove, and it also works as like an indictment of current tech bro culture, like that someone with all these skills and with access to resources will just steamroll over other people like they're entitled to it to assert their own greatness without really thinking about the consequences. And then the creature section is just a pure fairy tale. It's which Guillermo also exceeds at. So Jacob Elordi as the creature, he nails the physicality. He even got the like sort of hands, the way I said that he really nailed the like Doug Jones hands that have appeared in other Guillermo films. The way that's just the sort of he's like a giant baby essentially at the beginning, but he develops that throughout the movie. And it just his perspective of it, it just really maps onto like being let down by life or by parents or by society, but finding your own meaning and your own joy, especially through books and stories, the way that he does. I think something like a quote I am thinking of is when he says, if you're not to award me love, then I'll indulge in rage. And like the idea of, even maybe people of like our generation or younger than us, like being a little dismayed at the world and saying that like, if we can't, if we just want to live and function and love and all of these things, and if the world keeps denying us that, like it's gonna it's gonna come out badly. It's, I think revolution is sort of a theme that we can see throughout a lot of movies that we'll talk about, and so just yeah, and just wanting like a companion to go through life with, whether that's friendship, love, anything like. I just think it's a story that's important. It's a story that's well told here. I think I can understand the criticism that it's like simplistic or overwrought. I think that's what a lot of critics had to say about it. But I just think that Guillermo's specialty is taking like big feelings, big themes, and creating a world and characters for you to just experience them, especially on a big screen. So yeah, I think that this was one of my tops of the year. I think that Guillermo really nailed it. It's a perfect match of creator and material. So this is my number five.
This is a very good pick. It's not in my list. It's right outside probably my top 20. I really liked Frankenstein. I saw it at TIFF, which it was very special to see it in a theater. And then Guillermo del Toro and the production team did a little Q&A after the movie, and it was very rewarding to see Guillermo talk about how he had spent years trying to get this story off the
Oh
ground.
yeah.
And then,
Hmm.
despite the fact that just minutes ago we were kind of talking ill about them, Netflix gave him the chance to tell this story. And I think that that is
Yeah.
just so incredible. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, we should celebrate Netflix for that reason or anything, but every once in a while, like maybe 10% of the time, Netflix does do a good thing, but 90% of the time, it's like, no, we don't like what you're doing. But this is in that
Yeah.
10% to where they let Guillermo del Toro tell the story that he wanted to make. And
Right.
yeah, I think that this is now going to be my definitive Frankenstein adaptation. I think that Guillermo adapted the story so beautifully, and he had always said that he wanted to make it more human and more of a drama than a straight up horror film. And Guillermo's obviously known for his horror tales and everything, but he's also known for making these very surprisingly human stories in these fantastical worlds. And I think that that approach to Frankenstein was so refreshing to see, because this could have just been
Yeah.
a run of the mill Frankenstein movie, and maybe to some it was, but I don't think
Hmm.
it was that at all. I thought it was very unique and very original and very different from all the other Frankenstein adaptations that we have received in previous years and probably for
Right.
years to come, because it's not like this is going to be the last Frankenstein adaptation. We're definitely going to get more going forward because this is such a timeless story.
Hmm.
And the performances are so incredible. And I remember that there were people talking ill about Oscar Isaac's performance, and I'm like, guys, what are you talking about? This is like the most perfect performance out there. But the scene stealer of the movie, the true MVP of this ensemble, the heart and soul of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is Jacob Elordi as the creature.
Yeah.
I have been a champion of Jacob Elordi for years. I think that he is an incredibly gifted performer. I don't like that people just look at him as the guy from Euphoria, because he is way more talented than most of the cast on that show. I would say that most of the actors from Euphoria have showcased that they are really gifted actors outside of that show. And even on that show, he is
Yeah.
quite good on it.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't love the show, but the actors do the best with the material that they're given for the
I
most part.
agree. Are you going to watch season 3 when it drops?
I'll watch it, but I don't
Can't
really.
say
I'm
I'm
not too into
excited.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Jacob Elordi, it's just such a tender and beautiful performance, and
Yeah.
the progression of his arc as the creature and how vulnerable he becomes, and how initially you're terrified of him, but then you're terrified for him as the movie progresses. I think that that was just so beautifully executed, and we're
Yeah.
just a few weeks away from the Oscar nominations come out, and there's a strong chance that he could get nominated for this. We obviously don't know how the
Right.
season's
Yeah.
going to play out, but I think that if he were to get nominated, it would be one, a very deserving nomination, but two, it would also be a really cool nomination, because you wouldn't think that a performance of Frankenstein's monster would be
Hmm.
nominated for the highest prize in Hollywood. That's like a huge achievement on its own. And he's also so young too. He
Yeah.
still is fairly early in his career, and I think that that is just all around very inspiring. So yeah, I really enjoyed Frankenstein. I had the pleasure of watching it twice in the theater, and I'm really
Hmm.
glad that I got to do that, because I know that there were some people that didn't even get a chance to see it in the theater, and that's very disappointing. But
Yeah.
I think it's great that it made its way around the globe theatrically. I'm glad that you got to see it in the theater, especially because you talked about how your dad has such an attachment to Guillermo and that you got to watch it with him. And then you went to a Q&A with him the same day you saw the movie.
Yeah, it was
That
awesome.
to me is pretty sick. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, I'm in the middle of a rewatch at home right now. I started it last night and watched about half of it just because I wanted to, get a sense for how it played at home and stuff like that. And I was still just as, into it and everything. Obviously the theater experience, especially on that day, like couldn't be beat. But for me, I think it works well, just as
Yeah,
much. If you have to watch it at home, it's definitely still worth it. There's still so much to enjoy.
totally. Couldn't agree more. I haven't watched it at home myself yet, but I definitely plan on doing that sometime soon. My number five is so
Yeah.
different from Frankenstein. It's very vastly different. It's much shorter than Frankenstein, I'll say
Sure.
that. But oh my god, it's so rewarding. So I'm gonna go with a film from one of my favorite filmmakers. The way that you had talked about Guillermo del Toro is
Hmm.
how I am with Richard Linklater, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
pick Blue Moon as my number five. So
Love it.
I love theater similar to you. When we first became friends and everything, long before we started coming up with this podcast and everything, we both talked about our love for theater, and we're both film people at heart. I think we could both say that film is our favorite thing, but
Hmm.
theater, at least for me, is a close second to my
Yeah.
love for film. And anytime there's a movie out relating to theater in any capacity, I am seated day one.
Hmm.
And then you add Richard Linklater to it, absolutely. And then you add the cream of the crop, Ethan Hawke, to star in it. And Ethan Hawke and Richard Linklater have made so much magic together. They've worked together
Yeah.
for 30 years at this point. This
I
is
think this was their
now
eighth film together, right?
their
Something
ninth
like that.
film
Or ninth,
together.
yeah.
Ninth film together over 30 years. I mean, when Ethan Hawke and Richard Linklater first started working together, Ethan Hawke was just a little baby. And now he's a man. He's a full grown man, and he
Right.
has a child who's acting her heart out in the industry right now, which is
Hmm.
very exciting. One of the more talented Nepo babies, but that's a different discussion for another
True.
time. Um, but Blue Moon, so it's the story of Lorenz Hart, who was this renowned theater lyricist, and he kind of fell off from the spotlight, and he had this partner who was Richard Rogers, who in this film was played by Andrew Scott. And now he is off with Oscar Hammerstein, and this is taking place over the course of one night. It is after the opening night performance of Oklahoma in 1943, and it's entirely set inside this restaurant of Sardi's where Lorenz Hart is just monologuing his heart out about a little bit of everything. He doesn't shut up. He doesn't have a moment to breathe. He just keeps yapping and yapping and yapping. And this is a film where you brought this up a while ago to where people talk about, oh, this movie feels like a play. So that kind of deteriorates the quality of the movie.
Hmm.
Sometimes that might be the case. I think this time, though, it works perfectly. It's such an engaging character piece about a very broken man who has to put on this facade, pretending like everything is sunshine and rainbows, but yeah, deep down we know that he's not doing okay. He's a struggling artist, he's a struggling alcoholic. He
Hmm.
has little to nobody in his life. He literally has nothing to live for, and this one night feels like kind of the last bit of humanity for him to where he feels a little bit free, but then he also knows that while his former partner and his new partner are now on the precipice of stardom, Lorenz is completely fading from that position. And it's
Hmm.
so heartbreaking, but it's also so funny. It's so charismatic. It's so entertaining. And Ethan Hawke's performance is truly lights out in this, and he's a guy
Yeah.
that has given tremendous performance after another. I think he's one of the most underrated actors that we have in the business, to where, yes, everybody knows who Ethan Hawke is, but he doesn't seem to get the attention that other actors may receive. And I
Hmm.
love that Ethan Hawke has done pretty much everything in his career. I mean, he's literally done everything. He's explored every possible genre, and if I look at his filmography, I couldn't find anything that he hasn't done. He's done pretty much everything. And you can make an argument that this might be the best performance of his career. I wouldn't say it's my favorite of his. It's definitely up there for sure, but it's a truly remarkable performance. And it's really hard to make a character like this work as strongly as it does because he's not a very likable guy, but then at the same time, he is a likable guy. He's a human being, and we could see his pain, but we could also see that he is a bit of an annoying person, and he definitely recognizes that he's annoying. And the screenplay by Robert Capello is just so captivating. The balance of wit and thoughtfulness is just so endearing, and I love a story to where we follow a character that has a lot of regret and is able to admit that they have a lot of regret, but they're also trying to find ways of moving forward. And I think that this film tackles that subject so beautifully. And I also believe that this film coming out at this stage in Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke's careers, this was the perfect time to put it out because they've made so much together, so many different films. Ethan Hawke had gotten the screenplay over a decade ago, and Richard Linklater is like, you're not ready to be in this. We'll make this when it's the time. Fast forward a decade later, they make the film, and it was so beautiful. I loved this film the moment I saw it, and I had the opportunity to see it a couple of times, and Richard Linklater will continue to be one of my favorite filmmakers, as will Ethan Hawke when it comes to my favorite actors. I think that this film is just, it's so good. And Richard Linklater had two films that came out this year, both very different from one another, showing two different sides to him. And while I admittedly wasn't as high on Nouvelle Vague as I wanted to be, I was still very impressed with what Linklater did with that film. But this was my favorite of the two, hands down. And I said this when I walked out of the movie the first time, and I'll say it again. I don't know what kind of magic they pulled off to make Ethan Hawke a 5 foot tall man, a 5'10" man into a 5 foot tall man. I don't know how they did it. It was very seamless. When the first shot came to be the wide shot and you see his legs are short, I'm like, this is insane. I don't know how they pulled this off, but I'm so riveted. So yeah, Blue Moon is my number 5.
Nice. Yeah, I loved it too, and definitely agree. Yeah, it was my favorite Linklater film of the year. Yeah, when I saw it, I saw it in the theater, and I got to see followed by a Q&A with Ethan Hawke, which was amazing, and loved hearing him talk about it. And you're definitely right that he's sort of done every genre and everything, but I think especially in his work with Linklater, he's done a lot of like characters that are very similar to himself. Like, even the Before trilogy, I think he and Julie Delpy like have a writing credit on that. Like they had a hand in shaping the dialogue and the character and stuff. And I think it's, was sort of modeled after him and his own life and philosophy at that point in time and things like that. So this was a pretty big swing for him to put on makeup and do that, whatever the sort of theater or movie magic they use to make him shrink down and stuff like that. And play someone who's really different from himself. And so, I think that he could probably, like you said, they needed him to like age into the role, probably both physically and emotionally, and get to a place where he could understand that level of regret and having success and losing it, and the highs and lows there of like, living a creative lifestyle, things like that. So yeah, I think that is all on screen. I think that he is like going for it. And yeah, you're right. The character is like, he's a tough hang. He's like not someone that you'd necessarily want to, spend a whole evening with. But I think the cast around him is great. I think that Andrew Scott in particular is like, Ethan Hawke is sort of doing this slightly heightened, kind of guy, and he's grounding it in some real qualities. But then Andrew Scott just kind of can come in, like sees through all the bullshit. Like he obviously knows this man so well, and so that's a really fascinating dynamic to watch play out. Yeah, I think the one thing that didn't work for me is I didn't quite love Margaret Qualley's performance in it. I generally like her, but like I said, Ethan Hawke I think is just like so perfect in this, and for her I think she felt more like she was just putting on this sort of fast talking 20-year-old sort of thing. So the scenes for that, which the scenes are kind of like the structure of it sort of has him interacting with people at different points in the night. So, just for her scene, I was like, felt a little less engaged or kind of just like I wanted to be with the other people in the bar, think that sort of thing. But yeah, I think Ethan Hawke is like unimpeachable in this. I think it's really well shot, and especially for being, just in one location, like Linklater makes it cinematic. And yeah, it's just a great story of regret and loss, but he still is this fascinating person who is brilliant in so many ways and just has these other struggles that are, kind of his downfall.
And I hope he gets nominated for the Oscar.
Definitely,
I
yeah.
really hope. He's never been nominated for Best Actor. He's only gotten supporting actor and screenplay nominations, and it's like he was so robbed of a nomination for First Reformed, and
Yeah.
which I still think is his best performance. And I would love for him to get some kind of love for this. And he's been doing really well with the critics groups. He's been getting some televised nominations, and yeah, it's so deserving. And like there are people I know that don't even like this movie, but they could recognize how great Ethan Hawke is. And yeah, I would agree. Margaret Qualley, not my favorite Margaret Qualley performance, and certainly not my favorite performance in the film, but I do think with what she was given, she did a decent enough job.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like the chemistry between the two of them, but I think my favorite duo in the film was whenever Ethan Hawke and Andrew Scott would act alongside one another. And plus,
Right.
whenever Bobby Cannavale, too. Bobby Cannavale
Love him.
playing
He's
an
always
actual
great.
nice guy was really wonderful, too. So we have very different number fives. Very curious to hear our number fours. So, what is your number four?
Yeah, my number four, I'm going with No Other Choice, the entry this year from Park Chan-wook. And so I think, I talked about my love for Guillermo. He's definitely one of my top directors. But if I have to pick like one director filmography, that's like my absolute top, it's the Coen brothers. And for me, if the Coen brothers can't be making movies together right now, Park Chan-wook is like the next best thing. Because to me, this movie totally fits into, some of their best work. And it's all in that, I think I called it the genre of like desperate man causes death and destruction because capitalism and toxic masculinity. Like if that was a genre, I think that this is like a fantastic entry in it. So, I don't know if we want to get into like spoilers and stuff. I want to try to kind of talk around things in case people haven't had a chance to see it yet. But essentially, excuse me, I'm forgetting his name. Lee Bong Hun is the lead actor, who is in Squid Games. I never actually watched that, but I loved his performance in this. So essentially, he's loses his job and is goes to some desperate measures to try to win back a different position. And it's really just it's the sort of thing where a man is feeling sort of slighted by this loss. He's feeling like he needs to prove himself. He starts spying on other people who are contenders for this job that he wants, and things go horribly wrong and take a violent turn, things like that. So I just think that it's like this heightened version of reality, but I was still really moved and shaken by like some of the honest depiction of like how desperate people will get to cling to, even, he's not doing this to become like ultra rich or anything. He essentially wants to keep his house, keep his like, middle management professional job, just as a way of like maintaining his status quo. And, in the process, he sort of, neglects his family. Who he's ostensibly doing this for, to maintain his family and his current life. And just the way that ego and everything can get in the way of trying to achieve that like security and dignity, things like that. I've put down that I think this would, which I think we both also had probably somewhat high on our lists, probably would be a good double feature with something like The Mastermind that came out this year, which was Kelly Reichardt's movie. Josh O'Connor in that is both characters are sort of like sacrificing the connection with their own families for their like crime pursuits, and it's really just wrapped up in all of the wrong things. And No Other Choice really ends with I think a pretty solid message about the dangers of AI and automation and the way that like you can claw and fight and kill to get some scraps from the people in power, to hold on to, like I said, these middle management things that are essentially not really worth anything in and of themselves. But your life is going to be hell. Eventually, it's going to come for you too. That really, throwing other people under the bus is never going to save you from, what's coming eventually. And when people in power, want to step on you, they will essentially. And so all of that, plus this is some of the most amazing direction and editing, which is typical of Park Chan-wook. He's incredible. Some of the, really cool like editing tricks and things like that. I think people have talked about this already, but like his use of screens in the movie, which is something that a lot of directors have talked about wanting to avoid, like not wanting to, set something earlier so you don't have to deal with smartphones, and that it's not cinematic to have a character like reading something on a screen. But he really goes full into it, and it's so cool to see something that's like a thriller, sort of thing you might associate with like an earlier time period, to have this like cool stylish thriller brought into like the 21st century. And it's like it's all about the phones and laptops, and who's getting a message when, and the cool way that he will shoot actors' reactions within a screen, or have a screen here and an actor behind it, like all of these really cool creative ways to deal with something that's usually a problem in film. But yeah, I think that this was just really, really of our time, but also timeless, because it's just fun. It's just like a really like rollicking sort of movie that I think anyone could get into. I think the performances are great, and yeah, I think this was like a really, I wasn't surprised. I had pretty high expectations going into it, but yeah, it definitely made my top for the year.
Yeah, this is right outside my top five. I have it at number 8 on my list. I loved this film as well. I love Park Chan-wook, and I don't know how he finds a way of outdoing himself every single time. I don't
Seriously.
understand how he does it. Like, literally, I'm sitting there watching this movie, and I've only seen it once. I haven't seen it since I saw it at TIFF, and I was just sitting there, just so transfixed by the filmmaking choices that he was making. The colors, the imagery, the match
Yeah.
cuts, the dissolves, the double exposures. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what goes on in his head, and then how he's able to put it on screen. I think it's so impressive what he's able to do. And yeah, the themes that this film is tackling, and the commentary on AI and capitalism and the job market, especially nowadays, I think was really, really interesting, especially
Yeah.
as a follow up to Decision to Leave. I think that this was a very fascinating film to follow that one up with, and he outdid himself again. It's a really incredible film, and yeah, Lee Byung Hun's performance, another performance that I hope gets a little more recognition throughout the season. Unfortunately, Best Actor is so stacked this
Yeah.
season. I love that he got that Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor, and I love that he's making his
Yes.
way around the critics groups and everything. But yeah, it's incredible. It's so good. And one of the shots that stuck with me, not just from this movie, but in 2025 in general, was when, and I don't know how they filmed this, and I don't want to know how they film it because I just love leaving it up to my imagination. That shot inside the beer glass, and
Right.
it's just like we're seeing the beer being sucked in and everything. I don't understand. I don't understand how he did it. I don't get it, and I think he's a madman for it. And I would love for himself to get some recognition for that, because he's a guy that unfortunately hasn't gotten his flowers from the Academy. And I know that we shouldn't invest a lot of stock in the Oscars being how popular someone could be and everything, but if there's anyone that deserves any recognition from the Academy, it's Park Chan-wook. So that's a
Yeah.
great pick, Veronica.
And I
That's
think he's
wonderful.
someone, sorry, I think he's someone who hasn't quite gotten his flowers, and yet it's sort of like almost taken for granted now. Like, of course, Park Chan-wook made a fascinating, exciting, push the medium forward kind of movie, because like that's what he always does. But like that's
Right.
like I really wanted to recognize this one as something that's like really special.
No, 100%. And it's so funny. You have a Neon International title at your number
Yeah.
4. I also have a Neon International
Oh
title at
wow.
my number 4. I'm going to go with Sentimental Value. That's my number 4.
Gotcha. Yep.
The Worst Person in the World, a film that you brought up earlier in the podcast, that might be my favorite film of the entire decade so far. I adore that movie with every fiber of my being. One of my favorite things about being a fan of film, and I'm sure you could agree with me on this, is whenever you go into a movie that you know pretty much nothing about, you didn't watch a trailer, you didn't look up the synopsis, you just know as little as humanly possible, and then you walk out of it saying that that might have been one of the best things you have ever watched. That was me with The Worst Person in the World. I went into that film knowing nothing about it, didn't watch a trailer. The only thing I knew was that there was a shot of a girl running. That's the only thing I knew walking into that movie. And then I walked out of it going, that was the best thing I've ever watched in my life. So naturally, of course, my hype for Joachim Trier's follow up to that film was through the roof. And the fact that Renata Reinsfeld, the star of Worst Person in the World, was in this film, I was like, yeah, give it to me now. And then you
Sold.
add Elle Fanning and then Stellan Skarsgård, of course. I'm just like, yeah, this has the ingredients to be something really special. And it was something special. It's a film that tackles how art can help heal the broken wounds that someone goes through in their life and the trauma that they dealt with throughout their life. Now, this film, what happens with this, and to be very brief with the synopsis and everything, Stellan Skarsgård is a celebrated filmmaker, and he's on the verge of bringing his next project to life. But the thing about him is that he kind of abandoned his family early on in the day, where he had two daughters, one of which was played by Renata Reinsfeld, who grew up to be a very prominent actor on stage. He gives her this project, says that you are the person that I want to headline this project. And throughout the entirety of the film, we deal with this broken family in this house that has all these wounds and these scars, and it's also a surprisingly funny movie, and it's very poignant, and it's very sad, and there's a lot of emotions throughout the film. And I think for me, as someone who loves watching films about how art could bring the best out of you, but how it could also bring the worst out of you, I think that this film was a beautiful exploration of family bond. And it was such an interesting shift from The Worst Person in the World, to where that dealt with love and exploring yourself as someone in your late 20s and early 30s, but this was dealing with a whole family. And I think that it was a beautiful exploration of that. And the performances are magnificent. Renata Reinsfeld, Stellan Skarsgård, and Elle Fanning are all just immaculate in this film. But Inga Ibzadar Lillis, that's up there for performance of the year for me. I think that she is the heart and soul of the entire film. Her character has a lot going for her, where she's dealing with a lot of stuff on her own. And then on top of all this family stuff that's going on with her sister and her father, and they're bickering with one another, I think that it's such a beautiful depiction of once broken family. And I love a good dysfunctional family story, but this isn't a dysfunctional family story that makes you laugh. It's a dysfunctional family story that makes you think a lot, and it makes you simmer with thoughts. And I think that in the hands of someone else, this could have all been handled differently, where it could have been a little overly saccharine or maybe manipulative. Thankfully, that wasn't the case with this film. And
Yeah.
I love that this film highlights that change doesn't come spoon-fed, and that reconciliation doesn't always solve life's problems, and that there's no immediate solution to get rid of our inner turmoil, but it takes time and effort and patience, and ultimately how we choose to live and deal with it. And I think that it's a really tremendous film that took me a while to really get on its wavelength, because when I first saw the movie, I was so excited for it because of how much I love Worst Person in the World. And I've loved the film since the first watch, but when I eventually kept going back to it, my love for it grew and grew and grew, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. I adore sentimental value with every heart of my being. I think that this is a perfect film across the board. I still prefer Worst Person in the World, but I think that this is a film that honestly matches the brilliance of that. So I loved this film.
Yeah, definitely echo all of that. I have this on my, this is in my 10, just didn't quite make my 5. But yeah, completely agree. I think that, like I was saying before, I think that a lot of the major movies are sort of in conversation with each other this year. And so for this one, I sort of see echoes of Hamnet, which I also, had high on my list, but not in the top 5, which I think that, the idea of someone on the outside seeing a family member sort of channel their grief or their challenges or anything through their art, and understanding that like this person who you thought was completely emotionally unavailable actually is processing this through a different way. And whether, I don't think either of these films gives easy answers as to whether that's good or not, whether that's healthy. Sometimes it just is for a creative person. That's how they can process their own life and their relationships around them. And I think also something like Jay Kelly is also dealing with, were the sacrifices I made worth it to, have this storied career, but at the cost of losing moments and losing a solid relationship with my family. Things like that, which, yeah, as you said, they're, things that could be explored in a way that is completely saccharine or completely, or just uninteresting. You could sort of just take the average Cliff Notes version of it or something. But this is like so specific. It's, I think obviously Renata and Joachim working together again is they clearly just have a great working relationship and are able to like bring out the best in each other. So yeah, completely agree with everything you said. All the performances are 100%. They're so great. It's hard to know, if you want to root for Elle or Inga and supporting actress, things like that. I think they both do exactly what's asked of them and contribute to the movie perfectly. So yeah, absolutely. Great pick.
So number three, I'm very interested to see if we share a film at number three or if we have another difference in picks and everything. I'm so curious.
Right, we'll see. Okay, so I have for number three, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
Yep, this
So
is not my number
it's
three.
different. Okay. Well, good. It's exciting. So this is the film by Mary Bronstein. Rose Byrne stars in this, and I think that you could definitely agree that she is the main draw of the film. She's gotten a lot of buzz out of it. Her performance is like front and center. But I do think that Mary Bronstein's direction is like also the star here, like just as much. She shoots it so much in close-ups, like of Rose's character Linda, like of her face, and we're like just totally in Linda's perspective. And I think that she's so Linda is a mother whose husband is away for an extended period of time. She's dealing with her daughter who has sort of an undisclosed illness. Like we don't know exactly the details of it, but she's having trouble eating. She needs to gain weight. She has a tube in that's, it affects her function and stuff like that. So Linda essentially needs to, be with her child almost all the time, except for when she's in school. And she's got these sort of special issues and things like that. So, Linda is just like totally wrapped up in her daughter's life and all of these problems that she has going on at the moment. And, I think that it definitely, I've heard Rose Byrne talk about this too, like something like an unlikable character is like so thrown around, especially for female characters if they, make a bad decision, or especially for a mother, like if they make any sort of decision that is seen as not good for their child, things like that, then like they'll lose the audience or people will turn against her. And I think that this one is unafraid to do something that, could be seen as unlikable, but you could just have a character make a bad decision just for twist or shock value. But the way that we're so in Linda's perspective for this, it's like all of her decisions feel somewhat shocking yet inevitable. It's like, well, of course she's got to do this, or she's got to, take this moment for herself, even if her child might need her, because you just understand like the lengths that she's being pushed to. And so it's also smart that not all of her, quote unquote poor decisions like result in disaster. Like she makes some calculated risks that help you understand that like she is a mother who knows her child and is, taking these risks as needed. It also has like a lot of metaphysical sort of aspects to it. She sort of does this like lucid dreaming sort of thing that those elements kind of make you question like whether you're seeing what's really happening or if it's just how Linda feels. But as is said in the movie, it's like that sort of perception is reality. Like if this is how Linda feels, like that is her reality. And, when everything is closing in on her and she feels so like frantic and alone and scared, it's like, we're feeling that too. This is, I don't know, maybe somewhat of a spoiler or something, but we don't really see the daughter's face throughout almost all of the film. And I think that was just such a brilliant choice that like really affected the movie for me, because it again, from Linda's perspective, her daughter is just like this faceless pit of need that is like constantly talking to her or bothering her, annoying her, or screaming or crying. And it's just, that's how Linda's feeling at this moment. Her daughter is just this source of angst that she's completely incapable of connecting with, because mentally and emotionally she's just drained. She's just not able to function in a normal capacity. And it's like, Linda needs help in this movie. She needs help from her husband, who is currently absent, from educational and medical institutions that are like, have these sort of rigid deadlines or have these therapy groups that she finds completely unhelpful. And there's little flexibility or like ability to give her a little breathing room or anything when she needs it. she wants help from her therapist, who is played here by Conan O'Brien, in a really great role. I think, a lot of people were surprised that he was taking on a kind of role like this, because he's really essentially just like almost done with her as a patient. Like, he doesn't really want to deal with her situations, and she kind of just wants someone in her life to give her a little direction because she's feeling so lost. Her job responsibilities are completely overwhelming her. She's a therapist as well. She has her own patients who are completely overwhelming her, who are, not abiding by the sort of patient and doctor relationships, things like that. So she goes through all of this, and again, she handles some things well, she handles some things very poorly, and ultimately, like, not a spoiler or anything, but just when you get to the end, it's just like she ultimately just has to like shore herself up and brace herself to deal with all of this all over again. Like, you don't really get the sense that there's some great relief, or like she's had some great cathartic moment where she figures everything out. Like, it is sort of relentless. It's kind of like a hard movie to watch at times, because it is so sort of like exhausting. It's sort of been compared to like Uncut Gems or something, where it's like anxiety provoking. Like, it's very very tense to watch. But I just think it was so brilliant at showing this, tough aspect of motherhood when people are just feeling like this is just impossible to be able to do all this myself. And so I think Rose Byrne's performance is way up there in terms of best of the year. I think that it was a brilliantly directed movie, well written, everything like that. So what about you?
That movie is a fucking anxiety trip from
Yeah.
start to finish. It is so, so good. Rose Byrne, my favorite, maybe my favorite lead actress performance of the whole year. It's tough to say. I've been a fan of Rose Byrne for like, I think it's been 15 years since Bridesmaids came out, and that was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first time I saw her. And we've come a far, long way from Helen and Bridesmaids to what she does here. She's extraordinary here. Like, her performance is easily the MVP of the movie. But I love what you said about Mary Bronstein's direction, and the topics that are tackled here are so sensitive and so fascinating. And this movie is one gigantic tonal exercise, which I really admire. This movie is so dark, but it's also
Yeah.
so funny,
Yeah.
and it's so thrilling, and so much is happening, and you don't have a moment to breathe. And when you think you do, something happens again. It's a perfect love child to something like the Safdie brothers make. Obviously, Mary Bronstein is the wife of Ronald Bronstein,
Right.
who's worked with the Safdie brothers and everything on all their projects. And yeah, Conan O'Brien, major shout out to him, incredible. But also ASAP Rocky, I think deserves a
Yeah.
shout out too, because he's great in this. A really good year for him, because he was also really good in Highest to Lowest.
Nice,
But
Lewis.
yeah, I love the film. I love that movie. I rewatched it very recently, and yeah, it's so good. A24 had a lot of good movies that came out in 2025 for sure. I mean, they tend to do this every
Definitely, yeah.
single year,
Hmm.
but they're not necessarily the best with campaigning them. But again, that's a different discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Very interested to see what their film will be this season for sure. So, number three for me is one of the two films that everybody has in their top two, and that is
Oh, okay.
Sinners. Um,
Gotcha.
I don't even know where to begin with Sinners. Everyone knows what Sinners is. If you don't, then go look up what it is and go watch it. This is a film that I had to watch this 5 times to give it the 5-star treatment. I don't know why it took me that long to give it the 5 stars, but every single viewing of this movie, there was just something so new that I picked up on. It's so special, and we brought up earlier about how there are films that are clearly made for the theatrical experience. This is easily one of those films that was such a special treat to experience on the big screen. I had the lucky opportunity to go watch this on IMAX 70, which was an otherworldly experience. And I've seen many films on IMAX 70. I saw Oppenheimer on that format. I saw Dune Part 2 on that format. I saw another film that we're both going to bring up very soon on that same format too. This is the kind of film that makes you remember why you fell in love with movies. And it's also a reminder of why you love going to the theater. But I just brought up of how If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is this incredible tonal exercise and everything, if you want to talk about tonal exercises, this takes the cake,
Yeah.
hands down, because this is a horror movie, it's a drama, it's a vampire movie, it's a movie about music, it's a period piece, it's a movie about brotherhood, it's a movie about family. All of this coming together very seamlessly into this very personal story that Ryan Coogler wanted to bring to life was just something that I simply did not expect. This is without question the best thing that he's ever made. Michael B. Jordan, you can make an argument that this might be the best performance or performances that he's brought to life. And then the supporting cast surrounding him is just out of this world. Everyone is extraordinary. The filmmaking is insane. The imagery is some of the most breathtaking you will see in recent memory. The music, both the songs and Ludwig Göransson's score, outstanding, truly remarkable. The period aesthetic, the costumes, the sets, all of that, just truly brilliant. And what I really love so much about this movie, upon many, many things, is that, you know, this is, when you really think about it, the rare studio film that tests your intellect and it makes you think a lot. And on top of that, too, like, it's just such a powerful story, and the themes of love and family and, you know, expressing who you are and freedom, all in a film that has vampires, dancing, hot people, Haley Steinfeld spitting in Michael B. Jordan's mouth. I mean,
Cinema. That's
that
absolute
real
cinema.
cinema. It's the Scorsese meme coming to life.
Yep.
I mean, I don't really know what else I could add about Sinners that hasn't been said already. It's extraordinary, and I'm so happy that this film seemed to do so incredibly well, both with the critics and the audiences, the cinephiles, the non-cinephiles. It made a ton of money. People kept going out to watch this movie. It's done very well on streaming and physical media. People love Sinners. They love Sinners. And I did not anticipate that this film was going to be the major awards contender that it's become. I did not think that at all. I remember when people were predicting that so early in the year, and I'm like, guys, they're not going to nominate a vampire movie for
Yeah.
Best Picture. But then again, no one anticipated that Everything Everywhere, a film where people have hot dog fingers, was going to win
Right.
Best Picture. So you never know how it's going to fare nowadays. But Sinners, my God, what a film. Incredible stuff. I would be shocked if this is in your top two. So is this your number
It
two?
it lines up very well because this is my number two, so it would be my next to
Perfect.
talk about. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, like you said, I think I saw it opening weekend, I think. So like, it had, people had started to see it, but there were already, like, my expectations were high. Like the way that critics already talked about it as being, this super revolutionary sort of thing. I was like so excited about it, and yeah, everything you said is right. And I think that I wrote down that it's like it's not afraid to be sexy and smart and devastating, and like so many movies with like a big blockbuster sort of vibe to them, like they want to sand off those edges. They want to make it a little more palatable, or like that that anyone could just enjoy it. But I think that in creating something that is so it's been said before that like specificity creates universality. Like you make this very specific story about these brothers, you give it this gorgeous like Southern Gothic setting, and make it about the Black American experience and the way that vampirism can be like this metaphor for cultural appropriation, and it's tied up in Irish history and how it relates to Catholicism. It's got all these huge ideas, and giving an audience that in the package of so it's sort of like a romp. Like it's sort of like just fun to watch. It's and it trusts the audience by holding back that supernatural stuff. Going into this, I think almost everyone from the marketing knew that it was like a vampire movie, but it holds back on that supernatural stuff, and it's just like this gripping crime/family drama. And then you also get the icing on the cake of like then the vampires show up, and then it's got all that. I think it's really smart as a supernatural movie. It doesn't waste time like explaining or reinventing lore or anything like that. Like the audience knows what we're dealing with. The characters, you have Wunmi Asaka's character, who like is sort of your explanation character. and she's got good reason for like understanding this, because it has this sort of like cultural history to it. So all that is just really smart. It's just like it's so well paced. It's so fun. It's so, it is scary at times, but more of just a thriller that has all of these, great characters, big ideas, and yeah, not afraid to be sexy, not afraid to like go out there and have these characters, experience the full range of human emotions, and it just makes it, all that more different when the vampires are introduced, and what does that mean to conform to that and lose your humanity and things like that. So yeah, it's just an absolutely brilliant movie. I think it's really going to define 2025 in a lot of ways. It's going to be something that people are discovering for years and years to come.
It made me want to learn the Irish jig, but
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm going to be able to top what Jack O'Connell does in the movie. I don't think that that's possible at all. But yeah, it's incredible. I mean, everyone has said it already. We don't have any more to add. Like, no matter what we say, it's like we're not going to be saying anything new to how great Sinners is. And if you haven't watched
Yeah.
Sinners, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you haven't watched the movie. You need to check this out. It's wonderful. It's so good.
Yeah.
So for a while, like I thought about it being my number two, but I didn't want to be like everybody else and have the same two films as my top two. So number two for me is a film that I knew pretty much nothing about going into it. I knew as little as humanly possible, and not because I didn't want to know anything, but because I straight up really forgot about this film's existence. So my second favorite film of the year is going to Train Dreams, directed by Clint Bentley. I went into this film literally only knowing that Joel Edgerton and Felicity Jones were in it, and that was it. That's all I knew. So when I went to go to TIFF this past year, and I was putting together the list of movies that I was going to go see, I remember hearing very little about this film Train Dreams, and I remember it was getting some acclaim, but I didn't hear as much fanfare about it as other films that played at Sundance, like Sorry Baby or Twinless, or If I Had Legs I Kick You. This was one that didn't get as much discussion as it quite frankly should have. And when I researched the movie right before I went to the festival, and then I found out that it was from the Sing team, I was like, hold on a minute. Well, this is obviously very high up on my most anticipated list now because Sing was up there as one of my favorite films of 2024. And I love the partnership of Clint Bentley and Greg Cuidar because I love how they swap. They both write a film and then each of them direct one film after another. I think that is just so cool. And Clint directed this. This is a period piece. It's set in the early 21st century. It follows Robert Grainer, who's played in this film by, in my opinion, a career best Joel Edgerton. I don't think he's ever been better. It's a very quiet film, very meditative. It's kind of like a Terrence Malick akin film where it's very much visual poetry, maybe not much substance story-wise or dialogue-wise, but I think that the beautiful thing about this film is that it captures how fleeting life can be and how even the littlest moments we cannot take for granted. What I really love so much about this film, upon many things, is that it does remind people that life can impact you in so many different ways, and it doesn't ask you what the meaning of life is. Instead, it questions which moments, including the joyful ones and the heartbreaking ones and the exciting ones and the confusing ones, will carry into the future. And on top of that, too, I think this has my favorite cinematography of the entire year. I think the imagery is some of the best I've ever seen, especially digital filmmaking. I am a guy that prefers celluloid over digital. Celluloid produced a lot of incredible work, and so does digital filmmaking, but the digital filmmaking here is next level. The score is outstanding, and Joel Edgerton's performance. I just said that it's a career best. I stand by that. It's one of the best performances of 2025. And, this film, it's so relaxing. Like, it's a very calm film that honestly I think was very refreshing to where we are right now in the world. But it's also just so sad. It's so sad. There's so many moments that left me feeling depressed when I was watching it. And I've seen this film 3 times, and I've watched it in the theater. I watched it twice at TIFF. I never watch a film twice at a film festival, but I had to make an exception for this film. I think it's just so extraordinary across the board. And it's a film that unfortunately hasn't sat well with everybody. I understand that for some people, oh, it's too slow. Oh, nothing really happens. But sometimes the best pieces of art are the ones where very little happens, but yet it still left quite an impact on me. And I know that not everyone could agree with that, but for me, it reminded me that even the quietest films out there could be the most impactful. So obviously, this is not your number one. It would be hilarious if you're like, actually, it is my number
Surprise.
one. But no, this film is great. I know that you saw it in the theater and you were also a big fan of it. So kind of elaborate on your thoughts on Train Dreams.
Yeah, I second everything you said. Yeah, I got to see it with a Q&A with Clinton Gregg afterwards. And yeah, Sing Sing last year was in my top 5 easily. I absolutely love that movie. So yeah, I was excited for this one as a follow-up. And yeah, it's all about just living in this man's life and his perspective, going through these ups and downs with him, along with, the country as a whole, and the way that, the he's a logger, the way that industry is reflecting sort of progress in America, things like that. But yeah, it's just a gorgeous sort of experience that will, put you through the gamut in terms of experiencing the highs and lows there. Yeah, the way that it's shot, I think that there's one of those shots early on of like attaching the camera to a tree and stuff and seeing that fall. Like
Yep.
there are things like that are really cool, but then also just like some old school, like, photograph, some beautiful scenery, some fantastic actors like doing their thing. It's just like a really classic movie in that way that I think is like really cool in our current landscape, where stuff like that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But I'm glad this one is getting like a good amount of recognition this year.
I don't like that Netflix has it, unfortunately. It
Yeah,
makes me really sad that they have it, but I hope that this is one of those films that maybe in many years to come, more people will experience it and they will come across it. And yeah, it's just so good. There's just so many
yeah,
lines and there's so many deliveries and just so many expressions on Joel Edgerton's face where you just really feel something and you could tell that he poured his heart into this performance. And yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And the fact that it was shot in 29 days and it was shot
yeah.
digitally and it was shot on location and I, I never would have guessed it in a million years. And Will Patton's narration is also incredible too. I think that narration is something that I don't really vibe with in a lot of stories, but this is one of those examples to where it just felt so. I felt like I was in this world with these characters. I felt like I was following Robert on his journey, and I just felt so sorry for the guy. When we got to the end of his story, I'm just like, oh my God, you've been through like the Rainer. You've been through more than Jesus Christ. Like that's it's just wild to me. But yeah, Train Dreams is my second favorite film of the year, and number one, number
Number
one.
one, which I am assuming we and every other film list maker shares, is Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another.
Actually, no, it's Hurry Up Tomorrow for me.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. Shocker. Yeah, One Battle. Yeah, again, like you said with Sinners, I think those are kind of the two films of the year that are sort of going to define the year. And what can you say about it that hasn't already been said? But also, like Sinners, I think that my hype going into this was like could not possibly be higher. Plenty of reviews were in with everyone saying how much it was a masterpiece. And I do think that like the second the movie ended, seeing it, and I think I also went opening weekend or something in IMAX and everything. I think my reaction just the very second it ended was I wasn't totally satisfied, and mostly because I really liked the sort of prologue going into it. And again, like you said, I don't think we need to waste time with a synopsis here. I think pretty much everyone knows the story at this point. I loved the earlier snippet of sort of the revolutionaries in action, like in their heyday and stuff. And I sort of thought that was going to be more of the movie, and I thought that was going to be so interesting in their relationship dynamics or the political dynamics, things like that. And it actually turns into a little bit more of a conventional like chase story where you're looking for this person. You've got these different parties all after each other for different reasons. So I think at first I was like, oh, okay, that was a little different than I was expecting. It was like epic and exciting, but I was like, okay, it was like, I was like, that was pretty crowd pleasing. Like that was like a really, like but even just like thinking back on it, even like the immediate, hours after seeing the movie, I was already like thinking about so many interactions or moments or like characters that were, Paul Thomas Anderson is just really good at making movies like News Alert. Then like there are so many different interactions where you can just see a whole nother story going on behind that. And the way that it also made me think a lot about my favorite TV show of this year, which was Andor, and is also about sort of revolution, fighting back against fascism and oppression in big ways and small ways, and just the way that like you just need a community of people in order to do that. And so it's actually pretty impactful to, rather than show, the French 75, this revolutionary group, and rather than show them in their heyday, like when they're, fucking shit up and like really, really doing stuff, it actually meant more to see it as, Leo's character, Bob Ferguson, who is this sort of failed revolutionary. He's sort of complacent. He's, he's still living with all of that paranoia and disillusionment, but he has absolutely nowhere to channel that. He's just feeling helpless and things like that. And so it takes this, chase that's kicked off by Sean Penn's character to like, recognize again, to find it again that like there is this whole community of people who, share the same values, who want to uplift each other, who want to, just the act of fighting against the people who want to oppress others, who want to, fight against equality and social progress and all these different things that just making that connection, the connections we create while fighting back against these things, that's the point, even if it fails ultimately. Because I think it's a hopeful movie. I think that, it ends ultimately pretty uplifting and with some hope for the future, but I don't think it's, I don't think that's guaranteed. I think that it just goes to show that like just the act of engaging in any sort of, revolutionary sort of connection with other people, like that's all you can do, and there's no guarantee that that's going to change our circumstances, improve things. Like we still might be living in this world that is run by the lockjaws of the world and everything, but it's just about the journey to get there essentially. But what about you?
Yeah, I don't really know what else to add to
Yeah.
this one that has been said already. I'll try to be super brief with this and everything. Paul Thomas Anderson, he's literally not only my favorite filmmaker working today, he's honestly my favorite filmmaker of all time. Anytime he puts a movie out, it's literally like an event. This is like my Super Bowl every other year, every couple of years. When PTA has a film coming out, it's literally a drop everything and just go and watch it. And no matter what film he's making, I always know that it's going to be something really, really special. And the idea of him being handed a massively gigantic budget, something that he hasn't ever really been given before, and given the chance to tell whatever story he wants, and he finds a way of telling this incredibly timely story that is also super entertaining. Most filmmakers would never be able to pull off the feat that he pulled off with this movie. You have all of his trademarks throughout the film. You have the imagery and the music and all of that other stuff, but then you have these fascinating characters, these characters that have so much going for them, characters that are likable and unlikable and broken and hopeless and terrified and excited. And it's crazy to me that this high budgeted film ended up being so relevant to today. And it's interesting that Paul Thomas Anderson had been wanting to make this film for 20, 25 years, and it was timely then, and then it's timely now. And honestly, I think if you watch this 20, 25 years from now, it's still going to be timely. It's going to be a very timeless story. And, just as a cinephile too, like this was a true cinematic experience for the eyes. And I'm so glad that not only did I get to see this on IMAX 70, I got to go watch this on a VistaVision print, one of the few in the entire world. There's only 4 places in the entire world that have VistaVision projectors, and I got to go watch it on that format, the way it was shot, the way it was intended to be seen, and I'm so grateful, truly. I'm blessed that I get to live so close to New York and get to experience these very cinematic experiences that we don't really tend to get in New Jersey and everything, but one day we'll get there, hopefully. One day we'll get to that point. But yeah, this film, everything that Veronica said, it's just a true masterclass across the board. And Paul Thomas Anderson just continues to remind us of why he's one of the most important storytellers that we've ever been graced with. And what I really love too about him is that he reminds us that he's the type of artist we need more of, someone who refuses to do anything but tell stories, important stories that he has to tell pretty much right away or else he's going to explode. And you could see the love that was poured into this film from every single department, and the performances and just everything about this film was perfect. I don't even know what to say that hasn't been said already about One Battle After Another. I know it's so cliche that me and Veronica both have it at number one, but like, there's a reason why it's one of the best films of the year,
point
if
in
not the
being
best
edgy
film of
when
the year.
yeah, no point in being edgy. It's not gonna not pick it just to be different. Like it's a classic for a reason. Like it's already becoming that in our culture. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So those are our lists. Let's quickly recap our 5 through 1.
yeah.
So Veronica, would you like to do that?
So my top five are Frankenstein, No Other Choice, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Sinners, and One Battle After Another.
I
And for you?
have Blue Moon, Sentimental Values, Sinners, Train Dreams, and One Battle After Another. So that's it with our top 5. That's it with our list. Sorry to anyone listening if there's a particular film or films that we didn't mention, but there were a lot of films that came out this year. So
Yeah,
can't
and like
please
I said,
everybody.
yeah, a lot that I had near the top and could easily have switched them in and or out on a different
hmm
day. So yeah, check Letterboxd for the other reviews and stuff if you're curious. But
Yes, we will link our letterboxes. Please sure to follow us on that. So now we're going to do a bit of a speed round. We're just going to fly through some categories, and I'm going to let Veronica read them. I'm very excited to hear her answers to all of these, and I'm interested to see if we're going to have some overlap. I'm very interested to see if we're going to have that.
sure, let's go with favorite female performance.
Favorite female performance. I think for me, it's going to be Inga Ibzadar Willis, Sentimental Value. What about yourself?
Yes, I would go with Rose Byrne, and
Nice.
if I had
Rose Byrne
legs,
would be number 2 for me.
yeah, definitely. Favorite male performance.
Joel Edgerton, Train Dreams. Not even
Yeah, that's
close.
solid. Yeah, I'm stuck. There's definitely a lot that I like. I think I would give the edge to Leo in One Battle After Another. I think that's just like a really cool evolution for him in his career.
It's an incredible performance. He's so good in that film. It's oh man. If only that would be his first Oscar win. But there could be a possibility that he wins a second Oscar for it, but
It could be,
we'll have to
yeah.
see.
All right, what was your underrated movie of the year?
Underrated movie of the year. A film that people weren't as high on, but I was very high on. Or wasn't discussed as much. That's so hard because there's so many films from 2025 that I really, really wish got a bit more fanfare.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I would consider this underrated. And my answer could change tomorrow. Honestly, I'm going to say Mickey 17.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like that one too more than other people did. My
People were way too harsh on that movie. Listen,
yeah,
if anyone expected that movie to be like better than Parasite, you're crazy. Unfortunately, that was never gonna match Parasite, but I
right.
thought it was a great follow up.
Yeah. Underrated. I'm gonna do a bit of a smuggle here because I think they kind of go together. There were two sort of like romantic comedy slash dramas, Love Brooklyn and The Threesome. I think I saw them around the same time, so I kind of like have them, paired together in my head. They were just both really, really solid, and I don't think like I saw them in the theaters. I don't think they got fanfare at all when they came out, but they're just really solid. Love Brooklyn is a little more, dealing with grief and dealing with different relationships, but still really funny. The Threesome has sort of like a farcical aspect to it, but still really like really solid and stuff. So yeah, just shout those out because I don't think that a lot of people knew about them.
Yeah, I want to see both of those. I really wanted to see The Threesome because I love Zoe Deutsch. I really
She
wanted to
was
see
great in
that
it, yeah.
film, and then yeah, those are good ones for sure. Those are very good ones.
And then other side, overrated film.
Oh my god, this is gonna get me so much hate, and I don't care.
Do it.
I thought Blackback was so overrated.
I can see. Yeah, we had discussed
I
this. I'm on the same page. Yeah, I
he,
liked it. I didn't love it.
that's my thing. Like that movie got so much acclaim when it was making its way and critics were seeing it and everything, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be amazing. And I thought it looked incredible. I was so excited to see it, and then when I watched it, I was like, that's it. That's the film that everybody is celebrating. Okay, whatever. Honestly, I need to rewatch it. I feel like if I give it another go, I might like it more. And like everybody is so hot in that movie. Like literally everybody in that movie is hot. And yeah, I wanted to love that movie more. That movie should have easily been like a 4.5 for me, but can't love everything that's acclaimed. So would you pick that as your overrated, or are you going to pick something different?
No, I do agree with you. I think that it wasn't cool or smart enough to be like a great spy movie, and it wasn't like characters weren't deep enough to be like a character study.
It
So
just
it
wasn't
was
anything
just like,
special.
yeah, it was like fine, and then I kind of forgot about it. But I think
Right.
my pick actually is, and I don't know how you feel about this film. I'm gonna go with Roof Man. I
I
that one
liked
did not.
Roofman.
You liked it, yeah.
I liked
I get
Roofman.
it, I get it, but it just didn't work for me. And I think it was sort of like a tonal thing. I think that they kind of wanted to have their cake and eat it too, with it being like a fun, funny sort of comedy and have it be all
Hmm.
goofy, but also like tackling some pretty deeper themes that I don't think were necessarily fleshed out all that
Right.
well. And yeah, I don't know. Channing Tatum, he usually works for me, but I just don't think there was. I think that there should have been a lot more complexity to this that I don't think he pulled off, and I wish it had committed kind of one way or the other a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really love how that film was marketed to be like this very silly comedy. And
Yeah,
like the movie was silly to an extent, but it was also a bit deeper than the trailers made it out to be. It was also very refreshing to see Derek Ciafrance make a film that was a bit more hopeful, because every other
yeah,
film he's made is like the saddest movie ever.
like so dire. Yeah,
So dire and everything, like not an ounce of happiness to be found. I liked Roof Man. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I actually just rewatched it a few days ago, and yeah, I want to love the movie, and maybe I'll get there one day. But yeah,
yeah,
I don't
couldn't
blame you
do it
for
for
calling
me.
that overrated.
And then also similar vein, disappointing. So not necessarily.
Oh,
Maybe everyone else is in agreement with you, but you had high expectations and it fell flat.
oh my God! There, well, I don't even know where to begin with this. There are two that are neck and neck. I'll talk about the one that disappointed me, I guess, the least, because I wasn't as excited for this film as the other film. The Running Man by Edgar Wright. I
Mhm.
love Edgar Wright. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan, and he has been wanting to make a Running Man adaptation for as long as I can remember. And when you have Glenn Powell headline it, it's like the ingredients are there. It just sounds great. I thought it looked very promising, and I have not read the book, so I'm not going to comment if it's a faithful adaptation or not. But as a film, it was so dull. It was so bland. Everything that makes Edgar Wright great was nowhere to be found in this movie. It literally felt like any other person directed it, and then Edgar Wright just slapped his name on it. And I was so devastated after I watched this because I wanted to love it so badly, and I walked out of it going, that was one of my least favorite movies of the entire year. But truly, no film this year disappointed me more than After the Hunt. Like with Edgar Wright, Luca Guadagnino, that's my guy.
Mhm.
Every film that he's put out in the last almost 10 years, honestly, contenders for best of their respective years. Call Me by Your Name is one of my favorite films of all time. I love Call Me by Your Name with every fiber of my being, and I was so excited for this film because Luca Guadagnino, the cast, Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, Iowa Debris, there was so much promise to be had there. And I know that there are some defenders of this movie out there, and that's awesome. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad for liking something that I don't like or vice versa, but this really, really disappointed me. It was trying to say so much, but ultimately I felt like it had nothing to say about what it was tackling. It was so blandly directed, and I didn't like the filmmaking choices in this film. I did enjoy Julia Roberts' performance, and I love, love, love Andrew Garfield. The way that you were talking about Oscar Isaac earlier in the episode, that's how I feel about Andrew Garfield. He's like always going to be up there as one of those actors that I'll watch him in anything that he does, and I love that he's an actor that mixes it up. And it was very cool to see him play a very troubling person. But oh my God, another film that felt long, that dragged on way too long, that had no explanation of what it was trying to tackle, that had no right to tackle, it seems, the way that it did. And there were so many odd choices made from Luca's side, and the imagery, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score. Truly the big disappointment of the year for me. So what about you? What would you say was your most disappointing of the year?
Yeah, I am a slight defender of After the Hunt. I get it; it has major issues and makes some really stupid decisions, but there was some stuff in there that I liked. There was a Luca film is kind of always going to have something going for it, and I totally get the criticism, but I was kind of like I didn't hate my time watching it, you know. So that would not be mine. My disappointing. I'm gonna go with Weapons, and
Oh,
because yeah, I liked Barbarian, Zach Crager's first film, and it was not necessarily my style, but I had kind of heard going into it that it was like, this kind of gonzo thing that was a little wild and stuff. And I was like, okay, like if I'm in the mood for that, if I'm ready for that, then great. And so I was sort of prepped for that and liked that film. And then going into Weapons, it was like, I knew the plot of it, the basic log line. And reviews coming into it, I think were like pretty solid. Like everyone was really excited about it. And I was sort of excited. It looked a little bit more of my type of horror movie, and I typically like something that's a little more like, a little more sort of something based in like a real issue, or something that can be a little, emotionally involving, something like that. And so the idea of, a classroom of children going missing, I was like, this is, seems like it's going to be a really, metaphor for school shootings. Like it's going to be something that's like really talking about our times and stuff. And maybe about the first two-thirds or so, I was really on board with it. I think Zach Cregger is great at building tension. He created a lot of really cool characters, and the performances were all great, that I was like really invested in what was going on in this town. Like I was so curious as to how it was going to play out, but I wasn't like trying to get ahead of it or anything like that. And I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, but ultimately the way it resolves, it did sort of match the gonzo energy of Barbarian, and I just felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. Like I was really enjoying this like slow simmer, intense, emotionally involving sort of horror movie. And then it just turned out to be this completely other different kind of horror movie, where it was just, really wild, really, wild violence, supernatural explanations for everything. And it was just not, it was not what I wanted, with all of that build up for something that I thought was going to be, a little more satisfying that way. It just felt like the ending to a different movie that I didn't intend on watching. So that was a disappointment for me.
I admittedly wasn't as high on Weapons as everyone else. I enjoyed the movie. I still think it's a very good movie, but I totally understand the criticisms that you have with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So then going off of that, we can say what's favorite horror for the year.
Sinners.
Yeah, I mean, Sinner's
I
a
think
bit
it's
of a hybrid,
obvious.
but yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. Like, I don't think it was a particularly great year for horror.
No, it wasn't. It
28 years
wasn't. It wasn't
later,
my favorite. Yeah, that would probably be, if we're talking straight up horror. That would probably be the one for me.
yeah. Oh, and also one that I could have picked this also for like overlooked. I really enjoyed Good Boy, which was something that sounded really gimmicky, where it was like shot from a horror movie from a dog's perspective. But I actually really liked the way that it was used, and it was sort of a pretty effective haunted house movie, essentially.
I have not watched Good Boy. I don't like to see dogs in harm. That's one
Yeah.
thing about me. I could literally watch a movie where everyone's heads get exploded and everything, but if something happens to a dog, no thanks, I'm good.
There was actually a really interesting like special with the director, like that followed the movie right after, and he talked about how it's like his own dog that they filmed
Yeah.
over the course of like 3 years. And they talked about how sort of the psychology of like seeing a reaction and then just putting it in context with music and other images and stuff like that, how that will inform your interpretation of the image. So, they showed like some of the scenes where like you think that the dog is so terrified and like is so scared and in danger, and then like the actual them filming it, he'll be like, just waiting for a treat, or like having, some. So it was interesting, and just the way that they could build that around just a dog basically giving a blank expression, but you feel, you interpret your own emotion onto it. So I thought it was just like a interesting, cool little film from this year.
Yeah.
And then comedy, flip side of that.
Comedy. Wasn't a great year for comedy, to be honest. If I had to pick a straight up comedy, I really enjoyed Friendship. I really liked Friendship.
Me too.
Yeah, I would say Friendship would be my favorite comedy. I quote that movie so much, and every time I drive by a Subway, if you know, you know, like that's. What about you? What was your favorite comedy of the year?
I loved Tim Robinson. That was up there for me. I think again, there's a lot of the big movies had like comedy as like a genre, but it was sort of mixed. I think it counts as a straight up comedy. I would go with Eddington, which I really enjoyed because
Oh,
it was
that's we're polar opposites.
for
I didn't
you.
like Editon.
It was very divisive. I think a lot of people are like completely hot and cold on it. I liked it coming out of it, and I was like, that's doing a lot. I'm not sure how I feel about all of it. And I just kept like every time I saw something throughout the year, I felt like I was making connections to it, or I was like thinking about like it just felt like something that was so like burrowed into my brain so much,
Yeah,
and just really like just affected me more than a lot of movies this year, and
yeah.
had some really funny moments too.
I think
So
I need to watch it again. I think I owe it to myself to rewatch it. I could see myself maybe warming up to that movie in the years to come, but I mean there were certainly funny moments in it for sure. When the movie worked for me, it really worked for me. But
yeah,
when it didn't work for me, it really didn't work for me.
yeah, fair enough. Then let's go with favorite on-screen duo.
Oh my god, there's so many to choose
Yeah.
from. Oh my god. I might just start spitballing a bunch of them.
Go ahead.
DiCaprio and Del Toro in one battle. Clooney and Sandler and Jay Kelly. David Cornsweet and Crypto and Superman.
Totally.
Um, Ava Victor and the Cat and Sorry Baby.
And Ava Victor and Naomi Ackie, I thought they had great chemistry.
Absolutely. Dylan O'Brien and James Sweeney and Twinless, which I just watched like super recently. Um, yeah,
I
there's
love
so
that. Yeah.
many. What about you?
I think I'll shout out Together. I really liked that movie with Alison Brie and Dave Franco this year. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they
Yeah, that
were
was a
it
good
was a
one.
cool for them to have a depict a married couple on
Yeah,
screen and when they're a
absolutely.
real life couple. Yeah, I could shout out that. Yeah, Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan. Like,
Oh, one more for me. Daniel Craig and Josh O'Connor and Wake Up Dead Man.
oh, true, good one. Yeah,
So
definitely.
good.
All right, we can end with our final one. We can go with the hottest character and or cast, however you want to interpret.
Okay. Hottest character. There's so many to choose from. I don't even know where to start. If I put a list, it will be here for hours. Every single Mickey and Mickey 17 because it's Robert
True.
Pattinson, of course. Um, just looking at this list, it's so absurd. Everybody in Sinners.
Yeah, literally whole cast MVP.
Tiana Taylor in One Battle After Another. Um, I there's so many. The trio of materialists.
Yeah.
Um, everyone from Splitsville, which also has Dakota Johnson, and honorable mention to Ben Whishaw and Peter Hugh Day.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen that one yet. I'm gonna get to that. Let's see. Well, as I said, my number one guy is Oscar Isaac. Him as Frankenstein, absolutely.
But what about Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster, creature, whatever? Would you
Yeah,
say yes to that?
I mean, would yeah, for sure. But Oscar Isaac is
Oh, of
much more
course.
my vibe. Yeah, literally a whole cast of sinners. Lot of let's see. Timmy's got it going on, and Marty Supreme. I think that he's like so
The little
annoying, but in
mustache,
a
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's I like him. I like him in that period sort of look. Yeah, let's see. Hedda had some like beautiful
Oh my
looks, and
God, Nina
everyone
Haas in
looked gorgeous in
particular.
that.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, oh my goodness.
some good stuff. Yeah. Wagner Moura in The Secret Agent is like so like old school movie star charm. He is
Yeah.
like gorgeous in every frame of
Oh,
that. Yeah.
100%, 100%.
And Josh O'Connor in all four movies that
Josh
he was
O'Connor
in.
in anything in
Yeah,
general, just like huge. Yes, say no more. Oh, Una Chaplin in Avatar.
sure, yeah.
Like
Brian
it
has,
would have been very remiss of me to not mention her because there's no way that a Navi should look that sexy.
yep.
It's insane. Oh my god, absolutely wild, just truly wild.
Probably the only thing I really liked in the new Avatar.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that wraps up our categories. I think that we could talk about our most anticipated for 2026, but I think we should save that for next time.
Yes, we will be saving
Cool.
that for next time. So sorry to anyone who wanted to hear that, but you'll have to wait till next week to find out what films we're looking forward to in 2026. But guys, thank you so much for listening. We're so excited to have you along the ride with us.
Yeah.
We're very excited to bring you guys episodes every single week and a wide variety of content throughout the year. We're very, very, very excited to finally be getting this off the ground. And if you're interested in following along our journey, you could find me on all socials at Bryan Suffield. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Bryan Suffield.
You can find me at Vero Albarella on Twitter and Instagram. My letterboxd is Alba underscore real underscore. I can we can spell that out in the show notes if you need, but it's a pun.
Please give us a follow. Just give us a follow. We're doing a lot of really exciting things. And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe, share it around, and tune in every Monday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on all podcast platforms.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.